Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Before I start today's show, I have exciting news for founders, CEOs, and franchise brand presidents. Join me January 14th through the 16th, 2025 in Tampa for the first ever Emerging Franchise Brands live event, an exclusive opportunity designed just for you. It's my blueprint for success at every stage of franchising, one I wish I'd had, packed with real-world solutions and strategies to solve your challenges today and prepare for those you'll face tomorrow. Space is limited, so head over to emergingfranchisebrands.com to secure your spot today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands Podcast 2024 highlight episode. This year has been nothing short of amazing. I've had the privilege of sitting down with some of the most inspiring founders, CEOs, and industry experts in franchising, leaders who've shared their journey, lessons, and vision for their future. I also want to take a moment to thank you, our incredible audience. Thanks to your support, we're closing in on our 10,000th YouTube subscriber in just 15 months. It's been an incredible ride, and it wouldn't have been possible without you. Now, let's take a look back at some of my favorite moments from 2024. These stories showcase the passion, resilience, and innovation that make franchising such a fascinating industry. Let's dive in. This has been quite a magical ride since you franchised in 2014. And if I remember correctly from the Shark Tank episode, Barbara Cochran is the one who, well, I know you guys did the deal with her, but it was her suggestion to franchise the company.
That's right. Well, I say that she got the deal of a lifetime in terms of money invested to where she's at now with us, which we always joke about. Yes, she was the impetus and the idea for franchising. Again, Sabe and I didn't even know what franchising was. We knew that a McDonald's was a franchise and their french fries are the same experience, and the look and the feel and the food is the same. But you don't really know what that is if you're not on the inside, or if you don't know what being a franchisor is and what a franchisee means. But she said, hey, listen, you've got something that can be replicated and scaled and put into all these different markets over the country. So 2 years into business, having our own corporate trucks at that time, we were starting to learn a whole new business of franchising within the food truck lobster world.
Right.
And that was a hell of a take on. You know, it's something that, again, it's almost like we're starting from scratch on year 2.5 or 3, because you're learning a whole new business.
Exactly. And, you know, we talk about this on pretty much all the episodes with our founders, is that once you're in franchising, you're no longer in your case, you're no longer in the lobster business, you're in the franchise business. Right. And that's where, Jim, where some franchisors have difficulty in making that distinction. And that's why some franchisors fail, is because they still think they're in that business and you're not. When you're in franchising, your job is kind of simple, and that is, it's to make your franchisees successful. And because if they're not successful, 100%. You're not successful. Before we get too far down the line, I if you don't mind me asking some questions about the Shark Tank episode, I'm so curious. So obviously I've watched the episode. What I love is that I think the reason why you guys are one of the most well-recognized brands from the show is because Barbara, as you know, references it quite a bit as she's trying to woo another person on. It's like, well, she goes, my boys from Cousins, and I franchise them. So she likes to reference that a lot. What was it like, first of all, going on the show, especially since you guys had only been in business for a short time?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So as I mentioned, they reached out to us, and that was our first night. And over the next few weeks in early 2012, we actually said no to them, to Shark Tank, twice. And people are like, what? You said no to going on the show? And the reason is because, we were in our infancy. You just referenced it. We didn't have any historical sales, beyond 2 months when we went on the show, 2.5 months. We didn't want to give out our idea. Right. There were a lot of different things. And then eventually the executive producer called and said, if you guys don't do this, you're going to be making the biggest mistake of your life. So we did it. We were shooting it in July of 2012, and it aired in October of 2012. And it was a phenomenal experience because it's in large part, a phenomenal platform to share your business idea, to get mentorship or partners like Barbara, who's been just the best. And it opens up new doors and opportunities to you that we would have never had the money or the means to do. Like, we wouldn't have been able to go out there and pitch on a major network that we're franchising, right? We don't have enough millions of dollars to do that at the time. So can't say enough great things about Shark Tank, their team, and of course Barbara. But the show itself was, I always say, it is as real of a reality show as you'll see. Like, we've done a bunch of TV since, and you can see some of the things are reality, and they stop and they cut and they edit and they kind of make it how they like. Shark Tank was kind of, if you're watching, you're watching what we're going through. I mean, you start behind those doors, you walk up, take your space on the dot, and you're only 25 feet from these pretty, big figures, whether that be billionaires like Cuban or just successful entrepreneurs in the sharks themselves that have built huge businesses. So it almost kind of freezes you for a second. And then out of the back behind 30 some odd cameras, they go. And so you start, you start your pitch, that first minute and a half pitch of what your business is, what you're looking for an investment, equity. And then after that, it's truly just Q&A, right? It's when you see that firing back and forth, that's very real. They speak over each other. They try to get you off their game. And I think it's actually really pretty interesting because, you can see at times where Mark's like, you guys aren't answering my question. Like, we were answering it, but someone else, gets cut off. And we just try to go in with this calm, level-headed demeanor, not too high, not too low, so that they wouldn't be able to get that emotion out of us, good or bad. And Barb told us after, the producers were in her ear going, you got to get these guys to do something. You got to get them to show something that's going to create either TV or controversy. And we just stayed like level-headed. And I think the way that we did that, and the key to our success at the time was, we always say, if you're prepared, you've got nothing to worry about. And so we prepared for that show like we would the biggest interview, test, anything in life that you are going after. We watched every single show that was available to us. We took notes on the little 3x5 index cards like you're in middle school, right? Questions on one side, answers on the others. We researched every shark to what they did as, high school employees. Damon worked at Red Lobster. We knew that going in.
Right.
And then, of course, we researched all the sharks to say, hey, what are they going to ask? What do they want to know? And just the basics of knowing our business. While it was only 2.5 months old, everything from numbers to figures to goals, like, we had to have down in our minds such that we already knew our answer as they were asking the question. And I think that allowed us to kind of cruise right here in terms of emotion, to not get too high, too low. As I said, we would go on runs in LA and we would be doing our pitch back and forth, but we're sweating and there's fire trucks and police in the background, just that commotion of a city. We would pitch each other in the mirror. Saban would speak, I'd speak. We'd hit each other with pillows or books or whatever, just to try and take that person off their game. And if we could kind of work through that, then we figured, hopefully we'd be able to do the same in front of the sharks.
Yeah, I tell franchisees all the time, owning a business is going to be one of the most challenging things that you will ever do. So you got to buckle up, be prepared for it. You have to be resilient. And you got to love what you do. Like, is this what you want to do? It can be the most challenging, but also the most rewarding. You get to come into your business and love what you do, but it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But that's why we're here. We're here to support you. And that's why you buy into a franchise system. We are business coaches and also emotional support humans. It's twofold, right? But business ownership is like a roller coaster. There's highs and lows. And so I tell my prospects all the time in Discovery Day, and I do scare some of them off, and it should, if you're not prepared for it, if you're not ready to make the jump into business ownership, that's okay. And maybe the timing isn't right or what have you, but you got to be a resilient human and align with our core values.
The advice that I would give to prospective franchisees for Lightbridge Academy is to take a journey digitally and really understand franchising. Take a look at all the different concepts, go to some shows, give us a call, come to a Discovery Day, and hear all about us. I think that due diligence is so important for people to really feel like they turned over every rock and they've made the right decision, talk to other franchisees, and then work real hard and get real excited and start taking care of children.
I do feel like my leadership has changed and morphed quite a bit into a person who is very focused on innovation and taking us into the future, not just next month, not just next year, but where is season 2 going to be in 3 to 5 years? And so that's been my biggest surprise is we're franchisors now. We are not
We're not just slinging handbags.
We're not just slinging handbags. It's funny. I saw on LinkedIn the other day, it was like, it's hard when you're a franchisor, it's hard to tell people what you do.
Right.
Because when they say when you say I'm in franchising, they're kind of like, well, what's that? But if you say I own a consignment boutique, it's like, that's not really what I do every day.
Right. It's neither one of those
It's
two.
neither one of those things. So it's hard to wrap your brain around it. But we really do see ourselves as franchisors and leaders of the brand now. And so that has been the biggest surprise is that, well, I don't get to play with the handbags as much as I used to. You know what I mean? I don't get first dibs anymore.
No, hosting the live this morning with Tampa was so refreshing. It was
very
fun
refreshing.
because it was like, we don't get to do this really as often anymore
Yeah.
because our focus is the success of our franchisees.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to be able to do that this morning.
One thing that we started doing earlier this year, and I absolutely love it, every month we have a Meet Your Pack Day where our candidates who are in the final stages, they come into Ashburn and do an in-person meeting with the operations and marketing team. And we coincide it with the week that we have the in-person training for our new owners. And it's really great because we'll do a happy hour or a dinner, but we have the new owners going through training. And then we have our candidates that are flying in to meet with the team and go through the Meet Your Pack Day. And then we also invite our local Virginia franchise owners to come. And it really kind of goes to the culture of Woofie's, very open transparency, very collaborative. We're an emerging brand. We love that collaboration among our owners. So it's been something that has been new this year, and we absolutely love it. It really gives our candidates a great opportunity to spend a little time with these new owners and just, hey, what's it really like? How'd it go through onboarding? How's the training going? And these people a lot of times end up becoming like their mentors once they come on board.
Oh,
so
I bet.
it's been really fun to blend the candidates with the new owners.
You're giving them a taste of the culture really early on.
Very early.
And you
Very early.
probably weed people out better by doing this, don't you?
We do. We weed, but on the flip side, it really shows what the brand is all about. And they get to meet these awesome owners locally in Virginia. They get to meet these awesome new owners going through training, and they get to see what kind of people is going to comprise their new peer network. And
Right.
I always talk about with emerging brands, like one of the biggest benefits of coming into an emerging brand, but just any franchise system, is you now have this group of peers that you're all business owners together at Woofie's. And I want them to all meet early on and get to know each other and collaborate. So when you do have a question, you can pick up a phone to the owner in Rochester, New York. You can pick up the phone down in Greater Jacksonville, North Carolina. And these are people you might have already met, but we want that very collaborative spirit with our owners.
First off, read the book Founderology by Kathleen Wood, right? Or the Aubrey Daniels book about being your best self. And, it's weird to say, hey, read these 2 books, but I'll tell you why you need to read these 2 books, right? All of us have in our mind, this is what we want our business to be. And as a result, we start to exhibit behaviors based on that. And those behaviors come with consequences, both positive and negative. What Founderology taught me was, when you're working with founders, and, you mentioned a couple times, Frank, emerging founder.
Mm-hmm.
Founder's mind, you're saying, I built this cool business. This business is my Mona Lisa. And now you're going to bring on franchisees who are going to tell you, I could get the equipment cheaper. I could get the food cheaper, right? I don't like your labor model. I don't want to send people in for training. And the founder is going to say, but it's my Mona Lisa. You bought into me, bought into the system, not to the founder, right? So you have some folks who are like, look, I built a franchising system. And you have others that say, I built a restaurant system, a gym system, a hotel system. The ones that built the franchising system, and truly built a franchising system, thought about the consequences and everything else, you're going to go down a very different path in this thing than if you felt you built a restaurant chain and your way of growing is to get franchisees rather than raise the capital for you to do all the units yourself. And now here you have these 20 franchisees telling you why they're not going to embrace your high-end fill in the blank ingredient. And to you, that's the secret recipe ingredient. And, you want them to, and it just keeps going on. And there's this crazy tension. And that crazy tension starts with the fact you didn't really understand the consequences of what you were doing. So if you're going to start franchising, take a beat, right? Get with some folks, have some conversations, read the 2 books I just mentioned, make sure you understand what behaviors you're about to exhibit, the consequences that are going to come as a result of them. Because once that FDD is filed, it's a new game.
I expected when people first bought a franchise from me that they were like me and that they were going to, I don't want to say just work as hard as I did, but maybe my expectations were that they had the same expectations of themselves that I had of myself.
Right.
And I learned really quickly that people have all different aspirations. And in my business, it was really a lifestyle kind of franchise. And it was sports, it was kids. So people did it because they loved it. And I had some people that were really high flyers and they wanted to, rule the world in their territory and have just, all the market share.
Right.
And they would look at some other franchise owners and say, hey, that guy or that girl, they're not that good. And I would have conversations with that franchise owner and they were super happy. They were actually, it was meeting their needs and meeting their expectations. And one of the big lessons I learned, I guess, is that not everybody's equal in terms of the aspirations of a business.
I think you're absolutely right. And you're also right when you say you're looking at how you do it, right? And I have to check myself on that all the time. I get so fired up and impassioned and believe that there's always a way to figure something out and there's a way to get it done. And you realize that people are not always wired the way that you are.
Sure.
What I also absolutely believe 100% is if they come to you with an idea, even if you think it might not be perfect, but it's still interesting. It's on, target with the brand and so forth. But they really believe in it and they are committed to making it successful. It will absolutely be successful.
That's awesome.
Because they're all in on it.
When I started researching franchising, I knew it would bring out the best in me. I could help bring out the best in others. And I had this amazing concept that I know changes lives, that I love to do every day, that I could help other people do that. It was a no-brainer. Once you really start taking the inventory, it becomes a no-brainer. So once you made that decision, it was very easy. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it from a capital perspective and from a, skill set perspective, but I had made the decision.
You had your why. You know what? You just have to figure out the how. The how is the easy part.
How is easy. The how is so easy. I love that. A strong why can endure any how. And the how is easy. I'll bet on me any day with a how. I'll figure it out.
There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was, I did, when you ask, do you remember that moment? I'm like, I very clearly remember the moment when I made that decision. So, and I'm so glad I did.
Strategy licked. We know how to be successful, but you are starting over because you're starting over a brand new business, and it's
completely different business too.
Yeah, it's the same hockey stick growth where it's so slow growth, but you're right. It is a completely different business, and reality kind of hits you between the eyes when you start franchising because you get a little cocky starting out thinking, okay, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to want to buy one from me, and in many cases, we find out no, I'm in a field that is so crowded where there are so many opportunities. I mean, heck, there's 4,000 franchise opportunities. So it's very hard to differentiate yourself. What do you think, since you don't use brokers, you don't use an outside franchise sales organization, what's been your secret to success to selling 26? How do you sell your first dozen?
I think at the beginning, and again, this is very parallel, just like you said, Frank, for your own business or the franchise business. At the beginning, it's founder based. You are the face of the company. For sure. Let's say you start your own cleaning business like my franchise is. If the founder, the owner of the business is the one checking in with the customers, making sure they're good, things are going to grow faster. It's just fact, right? Because there's so much more personal touch, there's ownership. So right now I'm the face of the franchise. All of our leads are pretty much social media based. They either through my personal brand, through a podcast, through maybe something on YouTube that I was featured on. It's all personal brand building and letting people know it exists. And many times, as long as you put yourself out there enough times with enough consistency, people will find you. crazy amount of people like who said, "Hey, I found you on YouTube," and I don't really post on YouTube, but you get on like a YouTube black hole, you search something, you end up somewhere else, you end up somewhere else. And so as long as you're putting stuff out, I feel like eventually, people will find you and you're putting out valuable content. So for me, that's been the secret so far. And again, like I don't know if we get to a certain point, territory sell out, if that strategy still holds. That's a problem I'll deal with, I think, when we get there. But so far, the organic approach for me has been very rewarding because it also makes me focus on how do I give the most value. And many times now I'm able to utilize a lot of the things I'm teaching franchises as well as putting it out in the public. And it kind of dual purposes a lot of things and makes me grow in a different way. So for me so far as a franchisor, that's been by far the most successful is simply social media and personal branding.
Is this a legacy business for you? Do you see yourself doing this for life, or do you see yourself taking this to a certain number and saying, maybe it's time for me to move on? What's your plan?
I will lead this company for as long as I'm qualified. If we end up going into the Asian markets and the Middle East, like we're talking about now, I'm going to need some incredible advisors. I will be a part of this company until I am no longer useful to the company. I will definitely consider stepping down if and when we get to the point that it's going to take people that know far more than I do. Now, I'm very fortunate that I have incredible strategic advisors. I have 2 CEO coaches that help guide me and help me with my communication skills. So I hope to be around for a long time, but I'll never get in the way of the growth of Hawaii Fluid Art.
Yeah, to that point, that is the sheer reason actually why I even named the company Momentum Brands, because I believe that success leaves clues, number one. So how do we create the roadmap of clues for franchisees to follow and duplicate, prove the success model and leave the clues, the little breadcrumbs. Follow me this way, Mr. and Mrs. Franchisee, to profitability and success. The other part is progress equals happiness. And when you have franchisees that are progressing in their business and they see momentum in their efforts, they will do it over and over and over again. Because in most cases, franchisees are exceptionally hardworking people. And in most cases, they've bought into a brand or a concept that could take off. So it's not an effort issue and it's not a concept issue as much as it is a documentation issue of what works and how do I do it over and over. And like using social media as an example, so many people say, I want to go viral. I want to go viral. Well, you don't go viral until you've tried every which way, posting every day, and you post one thing. Listen, I went viral a couple months ago. It has 1.1 million views. And it was something I absolutely thought 5 people would do and laugh at me for doing it. But it's because I was posting consistently. I knew my audience. My thing on Instagram is tips to help you create momentum in life. My thing in business and LinkedIn is momentum in your business. And it was, I put my face in a bowl of ice, and I do ice water plunging on my face to help my complexity and everything. Instantly 1.1 million views of women saying, I want to know how to do this. And all you need is a bowl and ice, by the way. You don't need money, so it's free.
Right.
But I had learned what my audience wanted, and I posted it thinking my friends were going to make fun of me, and it popped off the charts because I had posted every single day. So it's a great example of franchisees saying, if you're going to do the work every single day, which they're committed to doing, if you point them in the right direction and you give them the encouragement, keep going. It's the long game.
Right.
There is no magic bullet. In social media and ads and messaging and positioning, it is the long game because you can never stop marketing, and you have to keep twisting and turning as the consumer turns, but you have to do it every day. And so if you can just create progress, the franchisees are happy. If they see the progress in their lead count or in their sales or in their membership or in their product, there's very few negative franchisee sentiments and brand if the sales are there.
Yeah.
But if sales are not there, it is always a marketing problem.
I think the 2 big surprises for me were around, these are professional investors that do this for a living and presumably are good enough at it to make a living out of it. But they make mistakes. And the mistakes seem to me, as somebody who's run a franchise business, as ones that should have been avoided in a lot of cases. Now, there have definitely been, situations where there's been bad luck or bad market timing or things like that. But there have also been mistakes of due diligence. There have been mistakes of execution, and especially mistakes missing the core of franchising, which is franchisees have to make money for this thing to work. They have to be satisfied with what they're getting back out of the money they've put in and the effort they've put in. If you don't have that at the core foundation of what you're doing, you don't have anything. But it's amazing to me how that disconnect has happened, especially early, and sometimes continues to happen with some private capital investors.
So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing, Dan, like, how did you guys know that you were ready to scale that quickly so early on in the process?
It really comes down to resources, right? So it's both intellectual resources and financial resources. So to all you potential emerging franchisors out there, it is very capital intensive to do it right. And if you try, and this is my own personal opinion, where you have to build out a team, systems, it's a whole support network, because if you try to bootstrap it, and again, companies have done that, but you're basically putting your initial franchisees, the folks that believe in you the most, that are arguably taking the most risk, they're the guinea pigs, right? They're going to work through all of the kinks. And that doesn't feel right to me, right? So we are investing heavily. And when I mean heavily, like well over 7 figures, right? So like when I see emerging franchisors say, I'm willing to put 50 grand to franchising, you're not ready, right?
No, right.
Like you're just not. And that's okay. We weren't ready either, right?
Sure.
So you have to either have the capital or have access to capital, and then really have a very robust network of support. Like we're structuring this entire business around supporting our franchisees. So, we work with the Rep 'em team and the Build 'em team, and they do all of our Fran Dev, and then they do real estate and construction team. So they will help white glove all of our franchisees from site selection to opening their doors. And anyone who's done that, especially in brick and mortar retail, it's complicated, right? And there's big dollars at stake, and there's huge mistakes that you can make. We know because we've made them when it comes to negotiating commercial leases and GC bid leveling and, permitting and health department and on and on and on and on it goes. So it's all about that support. And then we are aggressively building out our team, ahead of, we have 6 right now, and we don't even have a single unit open. And we have the entire Franworth team. So, we have probably a team of 15 to 20 people that their sole job is to support franchisees. And we don't have a single unit open yet, right? So when you think about, how on earth would this take 7 figures? Like that's how, right? So I think both capital is a massive deal that people underestimate.
Right.
And then if you underestimate it and you run out of it, then everyone, franchisor, franchisees, everyone's in a very, very bad spot. And then intellectual capital, meaning, do you have people at the table that have the appropriate expertise to be able to support franchisees and help them through the process and everything that goes along with it? So that's, we've been very, very intentional. It kind of feels like an army of support that even for our first 3 stores, like you could argue is overkill, but it's not, right? Like we're playing the long game and we're trying to do this the right way, but it is, to make no mistake, it is very, very expensive to do it right, in my opinion.
The great thing about franchising is that there are companies that have done this before. And so I always recommend to people, first understand what is realistic in terms of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 growth potential. And you're likely not the first brand that has ever come to market in your category or similar. So we can actually track back to year 1, year 2, year 3 and see how fast brands have grown. Because most of the time, even those brands that got to 100 units in a short period of time, it took them a few years to actually get some momentum to be able to get to 100 units. So it looks like they were an overnight success, but actually they had a few fits and starts before they could get there.
Right. What do you think are some of the key factors specifically to contribute to the success of an emerging franchise brand? How do they get out of emerging and get into becoming a mature brand? What are some of the linchpins to that?
Well, I think a key component of that is being on the right franchisees in the very beginning. That's key, because if you bring the wrong culture, that's going to push people away from wanting to be a part of your organization. If you pick the right people and the right culture and you form that really early in the brand, you're going to attract people to you because of who you are. And I think that's a big part of what branding actually is standing for something people that's meaningful to them, that they can be excited about, and they can see what it is you're doing. You have a great section in your book, Running with Your Head Down, which is a fantastic book. If you haven't read this book, you should read this one. But there's a great section there where you talk about Under Siege. That chapter on Under Siege is so good because I think this speaks to what your question is about when you guys are making that decision to expand, and you had all those things happen in a row where you had your annual conference and you had all these different things happen where you had the radio host go after you and your brand, what you guys are doing. That's a pretty scary thing. And I think emerging franchisors feel that for sure. They feel that under siege all the time. And you have to have something you stand for that everyone and you and your employees can all stand for. I like that part in your book where you talked about how you got everybody together and said, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're all about.
Yeah.
I would imagine that was a defining moment for you because people could see we can overcome any obstacle that's coming up. If we stick together, we band together, we are all on the same team, we all have the same things we're standing for, the same values we're standing for. That's a critical component. As you know, most franchisors don't get above 100 franchisees. So the first thing you need to focus on is that initial 10 to 20 or 25 franchisees. Are they the right people? I think, again, most people that just get into franchising, they want to get their first franchise sold. They bring on anybody who has capital, and it may or may not be the right person. You have to really think about, is this person going to validate well? Are they going to say good things? They follow my system? A lot of people who want to be in business owners, they want to have a proven system, but there are some people that just want to do their own thing anyway. And that's not the right kind of person to bring onto a brand new franchise.
Right.
You have to have the right people who can actually follow the system, because if they don't, it's not going to be reflective of what's going to happen with them when they join the franchise, because they're kind of doing their own thing anyway.
Well, that's a wrap on 2024. I couldn't be more excited about what's ahead in 2025. We're kicking off the year with our very first Emerging Franchise Brands live event, the Founders CEO Summit, happening January 14th through the 16th in Tampa. Time is running out, so grab your ticket at emergingfranchisebrands.com today to secure your spot. And as for the podcast, we're hitting the road again. We'll be broadcasting from Las Vegas at the IFA annual convention this February. So if you're attending, make sure to stop by our booth and say hello. I'd love to connect with you in person. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey and making 2024 so remarkable. And here's to an inspiring 2025, full of growth, exciting opportunities to collaborate, and new ways of supporting the franchise community. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.